going to hit the start in 3, 2, 1. So now we're live. So hello, good morning for all the attendees in this moment. Thanks so much for being here. I want to say thank you, a really big thank you to the presenters today. So Lachlan is going to be first, then it's going to be Pat. So thank you. We really appreciate it for being here in this event. For all the attendees, the questions are going to be solved at the end. So just leave your question in the box, in the question box, and I will ask those at the end of this session. So Lachlan, the public is yours. Thanks so much.
Thank you, everyone. My name is Lachlan. I'm here with my colleague, Pat, and we're going to take you through some of the application portfolio in our Microsoft Dynamics 365 supply chain management. So I'm going to take 20 minutes first, and then Pat's going to take the rest of the time to give you the broad sort of portfolio. So we have a new application in our supply chain team portfolio, which is a new solution called Intelligent Order Management. So just wanted to give you an introduction to that solution. We're focusing on the ability to look at your business profile, how you engage with customers, how you manage your products and your operations, and look at that data flow between different applications that you're trying to provide that visibility into. And so building on that concept, we've seen a lot of changes in business models with customers, traditional manufacturers, selling through distributors, through to retailers. All those business models are evolving, and customers have the ability to have a B2B business model, work with consumers, and have a mix of those within their operations. And through that, they have the ability to use supply chain partner to deal with fulfillment, deal with delivery. And often they have different software applications that you need to connect together in terms of technology. And so we were looking at that problem of saying, how can we provide more assets within the Dynamics family to help customers with those problems? As well, looking at how to connect and efficiently put cost-effective fulfillment options in place, be more responsive. These are a lot of the challenges that we saw our customers needing to be addressed. So from that perspective, we wanted to build an application that was event-driven, connected into the ecosystem of applications that you have, enabled you to scale out, works with intelligent rules-based optimization, so you can change the business process and change the rules, and measure that business process cycle from order through to fulfillment and delivery. Now, obviously, we're working in the Dynamics family, that we work with our Dynamics applications, but also working with other applications if you don't use Dynamics applications. And this is an important concept among all of our applications, that they can work with a portfolio of solutions in a component way. So from that perspective, if we look at our Dynamics portfolio, we have a lot of applications that can help customers in different business segments, our supply chain solutions, and this is where we introduced our Intelligent Order Management product. So we can work with our Dynamics family. So for example, we have a customer using our CRM sales application, and they need to get an order out to fulfillment and track delivery. And so therefore they can use Intelligent Order Management. If for a supply chain customer, if you want to get an order in from an e-commerce solution, then you can use Intelligent Order Management to take that order in, get that into supply chain, and use the planning and the warehouse management to fulfill that order through the back-end supply chain management. So equally, while we work with our Dynamics family, we also work with other ERP applications like SAP and Oracle, for example. So we wanted to provide that flexible architecture of how we collaborate and allow customers to improve their business process cycles. So we're an application within a family of the Microsoft applications, specifically built on the Power Platform. And so this is where we get and use our technology to allow customers to connect to different solutions. So our Intelligent Order Management solution is really designed to allow you to take orders no matter what business process you want to implement, whether it's taking orders from EDI solutions, e-commerce applications like our own e-commerce application, retail marketplaces, CRM applications, or applications that you might build, for example, building on the Power Platform. You can take those orders in through our providers, our connector mechanisms, use our real-time inventory visibility. And this is a key component that we want to provide, which allows you to aggregate inventory from many different data sources, whether you get them from ERP applications, warehouse applications, point of sale, even from vendors, for example, for vendor inventory. We combine that microservice with our fulfillment optimization, which gives us the ability to determine the best path to fulfill an order, looking at rules and intelligence like least cost or least distance, for example. Using that in the context of the orchestration, we can make decisions around which warehouse or fulfillment location or fulfillment provider we might fulfill that order, and hence we can get that order out to a warehouse system, a 3PL, a vendor in dropship, or a point of sale if we're implementing strategies like buy online and pick up in store. Additionally, providing that delivery visibility through connectors to delivery carriers gives us the ability to track those events and use that within the orchestration process to give us real-time visibility into the fulfillment processing, and therefore give that confidence to our back office staff in terms of delivery on order promising, and to our customers if we want to use that status information to drive communication. So if we have a look at this in the context of a typical order flow, orders might come in, they'll be stored on our common data model, which is Dataverse in the Power Platform. That raises an event which will trigger the orchestration, which will then use the rules and logic we've configured in the orchestration to send the order out to fulfillment. And so that's the fundamental sort of building blocks of the application. Let's maybe have a quick look at the application in a basic flow to give you some context of what the application looks like. First, we have insights. This is where we have our daily events dashboards, for example, intelligence driven by the data that's coming through the application. And so this gives us the ability to have a centralized view of those orders, what orders might need to be followed up on. We have a provider catalog, and this is where we have connections to different platforms, whether they're marketplaces, e-commerce platforms, delivery platforms, other ERP platforms, and it gives us the ability to connect to those. So we'll provide providers that Microsoft will develop, but we're also working with partners that will build their own providers. And a provider does the job of connecting to an API in that external system. And this is quite important because we know you have the choice of the software packages that you might implement based on the supply chain model that you're putting in place. But we want to allow you to connect that software together. And in this example, I've got a platform connected to BigCommerce, which is an e-commerce technology, which allows us to take that order in when an order is raised on that BigCommerce platform. That raises an event, and then we can trigger the orchestration. And therefore, we have the ability to transform that order in and use that within our common data model. So let's have a look at this in action so we can see the order coming in. So I'm going to go over to my BigCommerce platform here, for example, and this is where we're aiming to provide providers and also work with partners to build providers for different systems like e-commerce, delivery, fulfillment. So I'm going to put in my order and I'm going to pick a product here, for example. And so this is our customer order being placed on that platform. And this is where we wanted to solve the problem that we know we've got customers using many different e-commerce systems, potentially for different business units or implementing different e-commerce for different countries, for example. And so how do we get orders into one central system and have that inventory visibility and make decisions on it? So in this case, our order number is 3912 raised on the e-commerce system. What this will do is then we can start to orchestrate the order based on the event of that order being created. In this example, the new order event is created, and therefore we can design our business process for the processes and the type of order that we want to process. I might want to validate the address before I send it to delivery. I might want to check the tax. This is where we can call our fulfillment optimization. Our fulfillment optimization will process our strategies, and those strategies will look at our fulfillment sources. Can I fulfill from a store, a warehouse, a vendor, for example? Can I look at rules like least cost or least distance? And then it'll determine the fulfillment location. We may need to talk to delivery carriers, and this could be to print a shipping label, a book transportation, and so we can use that to call through the providers the APIs on those solutions when we need to communicate. We can call the fulfillment or the warehouse system or a 3PL or a point-of-sale store system once we've worked out that warehouse. In this example, we're going to send it to a fulfillment provider called Flex. Once they ship the order, which might be a couple of days later, that's going to raise a new event, which we can then communicate that status and tracking information all the way back to the e-commerce store. So if we have a look at our sales orders, then we can have a look at that order coming into the system. And so if we search for that order, this was our order 3192. And we'll see that the status on that is working its way through the order orchestration. And this is where we wanted to provide that visibility to the complex supply chain architecture that we know customers work with, because now they have a choice of the solutions that they're going to implement that make sense for their business. So I have that visibility of seeing where that order is and where it is on processing its way out to fulfillment. This is quite an important strategy for us in our Dynamics family of products, because we can now provide that visibility to other applications. If customers are using other applications, for example, our Dynamics sales application, if we've got customer service representatives that are looking at the back office and might take a call from a customer to understand where their order is, then that information about that order is visible in those applications as well, because we're running on top of that common data model, which is the Dataverse application. So I can see here now that the order has moved to our fulfillment determination. If I go back to our IOM application, this visibility is provided through Power BI intelligence by moving this data that we're collecting into Data Lake. So if you're collecting data in your analytics tools and you want to have insights to the orders or the products or fulfillment, you can take that data and do that analytics in the Microsoft Analytics platforms, which is an important strategy where you're collecting data to make decisions around your overall business process cycles. Now, it's important to understand that through that cycle, we may need to look at inventory. And so inventory visibility service integrated with our IOM application gives us the ability to store data from different data sources. Could be from the warehouse system, it could be from another ERP, could be from my point of sale, and we can aggregate those together so that we can have a single view of the inventory, which allows us to make decisions through that order orchestration process with our fulfillment optimization. Additionally, we're looking at introducing machine learning models. If we find our order, for example, we'll see that our order will calculate a fulfillment risk, for example. So this is our product that's come on our order line here. And the system will use a AI model to do the prediction of the fulfillment risk, for example, and that's where we can include intelligence like machine learning models in our order orchestration to determine what might happen to this order through the overall process. Now, this order will be sent out to our warehouse. So it will go out to our warehouse, in this example, a 3PL, and be shipped. Now, that will take a little while to ship, so let me bring up an order that's already been shipped. And so once that order has shipped, then we will get information back to determine the visibility on that shipment. And so we also have that execution of the events to give us that visibility. We may get tracking information back from the warehouse so that we can track this order. And so back office staff like customer service reps have then the visibility of the order in terms of how it's shipped. Additionally, you can use that information and that communication of the events to communicate with customers and to give them that visibility of what's happening with their orders. So this is the core concepts that we want to introduce with new application capabilities to provide rich orchestration within the context of analytics within the business insights to help you drive your business processes in these complex worlds of integrating different systems together. So if I switch back to our slides, I'll finish there in talking about how application is built on top of the Power Platform. And this gives us the ability to integrate to our different applications, like our supply chain applications and our whole portfolio of our Dynamics applications. This also gives you the ability to integrate with whatever applications you might have in your ecosystem. And it's a SaaS solution, which makes it a lot easier to provision quickly, no matter what your current infrastructure looks like. With that, that finishes up what I wanted to just introduce in terms of a new capability that we've got within our portfolio of Dynamics applications. And I'll hand it over to Pat to continue more about the roadmap of our overall supply chain portfolio.
Yeah, now you can go ahead, Pat. Your screen is sharing now.
Yes, but okay, very good. Thank you. And hopefully you can still see it. For some reason, it shows me on mute, but can you hear me?
Yep.
All right,
Clear.
perfect. Thank you. Okay, so what I want to talk is about supply chain and what Microsoft is doing to help our customers go through the supply chain journey. So as in terms of background, especially for people in LATAM, they're experiencing it no different than people in other parts of the geography, just maybe a little bit more feeling it personally. So logistics, as we know, has increased dramatically. This chart from McKinsey shows it only to 2019, but even as recent as 3 months ago, people were forced to pay $20,000 for a container to move it in the Trans-Pacific arena, which is outrageous when you think of trying to manage to a budget. And for e-commerce retailers, logistics spend can be as high as 30% of the sales. On average, a retailer needs to connect to over 10 different disparate systems, leveraging between 30 and thousands of ISPs or third-party partners. At least 1 in 20 has suffered a supply chain disruption costing greater than 10 million. Returns can be very high. Inflation right now is at an all-time high for the past 20 to 30 years. And then it is stated that 90% of the millennials use sustainability as a lens for shopping, which is something that we'll talk about in a second. But not everything can be bad. I think that if we go through what's known as digital transformation, so Lachlan talked a little bit about leveraging intelligent order management as a bolt-on solution to the supply chain ERP backbone that many customers are using. There is an opportunity to identify improvements in your operations. So again, another McKinsey report shows that if you go through the digital transformation, and we're not talking about a rip and replace of your ERP, but rather if you leverage some amount of bolt-on solutions to handle the heart of your activity, you can in fact identify 10 to 30% lead time reduction with the faster time to market. You can reduce the lot size. You can have a better efficiency in your factories up to 200%, reducing the operating costs. And most importantly, probably here is reducing unwanted or inventory in the wrong location. And that's the things that we want to talk to you about here. So what I'll start with is, for the sake of argument, there is a product that we have that's called Dynamics 365. That's the group that both Lachlan and I are from. And we wanted to go down this journey where we wanted to help clients who were operating in siloed environments, leveraging data uniquely to that particular part of the organization, and instead move to a linear type environment where you can have external signals such as weather, global events, risk, such as supplier risk, and incorporate that into your supply and demand network, leveraging your already existing ERP, but supplement it with solutions such as intelligent demand planning or supply chain visibility. And these can be layered on top of your existing ERP apps, so that our vision here is to help clients achieve what's known as supply chain maturity. You can have network data globally enriched. It doesn't really matter what vendor you're using, whether it's SAP, Oracle, or Dynamics, but most importantly, we're preserving the business interests. And this one is probably, like, if I had to have you concentrate on a single slide, I would say this is probably the most important slide of what we're going to show you today. So in this wheel, if you think about yourself in the center, there are things that you know that you need to do to ensure that you're on this circular closed loop environment, such as sourcing from quality suppliers, in known geographies that will give you the committed capacity in the time frame in which you want. The ability to move that product without being hampered by congested ports or by driver shortages. You want to make sure that your suppliers are giving you everything that you're looking for on time. Manufacturing doesn't have unneeded downtime. Engineering is working at its peak capacity with form, fit, function, all beautifully laid out for them. And probably most important, your customer, the customer of you, is operating with all the intelligence of the information in this particular wheel. Now, this is where we come in. We were able to help you with things such as in a factory workforce transformation or in a retail store, leveraging supply chain trust. And what we mean by here is security and compliance, risk management and mitigation, transparency of data that can be shared amongst all the parties that need to have that information, supplemented by analytics that are appropriate to your business. We're going to talk a little bit about sustainability. It's growing in importance, both in decision-making processes as well as what companies are looking for to ensure that they have livelihood over the next 10, 20, 30 years. Supply chain visibility is a little bit about a control tower that I'll talk to you about, which will provide you the end-to-end visibility with real-time monitoring, predictive alerting, and even going so far as suggesting systemic solutions for overcoming identified disruptions. And probably one of the other aspects of this is an improved planning environment that allows you to do integrated business planning with the right amount of supply and spare parts planning. On top of that, there's a lot of tools that we use. There's partners that we partner with in addition to developing the solutions ourselves. We'll see how far we can get through this session and talk about them. The Dynamics platform is part of the overall Microsoft platform, so it is a puzzle piece to that which was already existing, and many customers are able to utilize and enjoy. What Lachlan talked about was a product called Intelligent Order Management. It's one of the products that are on the portfolio wheel of the Microsoft Dynamics solution. The other product that probably would be familiar to you is Supply Chain Management, and another one called Supply Chain Insights, which was recently announced a couple weeks ago. Hasn't even made its way onto the wheel yet, but we'll get that corrected. And another product that helps in workforce transformation called Microsoft Guides. There may be other products on here that you may be either leveraging or using or enjoying, such as Commerce. And all these modules fit together so that you can leverage and utilize information between the applications. The product, again, supply chain management, was recently announced to be in the leadership quadrant for Gartner's Magic Quadrant. And this was what we feel is a good recognition of the investments that we've been making in the supply chain space. And we will continue to endeavor to reach or keep our leadership position in all aspects of everything that we do with any of the products that we develop. So one of the things that when we think about Control Tower, we think about the overall supply chain space and moving to this linear environment. There's this blending between S&OP, the traditional S&OP that usually happens in a war room or a monthly event where you get inputs coming from your salespeople, such as demand forecasting, and from there you evaluate the financials. What is your capacity for manufacturing, and what overall planning do you need to have for your components and finished goods? And then you have the execution side, where you have the product being moved, replenished, materials management, demand management. And what we wanted to do is bring this into a singular platform so that if something happens on the left, we can respond very quickly to the right and vice versa. This is why we call it a control tower. So if you think about a traditional airport control tower, we have this type of visual that can help you understand what we're doing. We put a lot of intelligent data in the control tower, so it's not just movement of data, but rather it's a lot of analytics or intelligence bedded into the product itself. We funnel or layer on top of that the different aspects such as inventory management. We make this available as part of a supply chain twin, and then we have the output of this for the customer to be able to see with the singular view, because we're layering in here Power Automate and Power BI so that the customer has visibility of everything that's going on within the control tower, but from a persona perspective that can allow them to see, sense, feel, and respond in a moment's notice. The way that we think about it is we can build the control tower in many different ways. So usually many customers are feeling the pain point in what's called the final mile to get to the customer. They have low OTIF, they have low NSAT scores, they have the wrong product in the wrong place at the wrong time. And so usually that's the area that's probably the easiest to solve, or it's the first pain point that's the quickest to solve. And so we can layer in many aspects of these elements that we have pre-built intelligence for. Lachlan talked a little bit about inventory visibility. I think that's a very important component to what we establish as a control tower, giving you visibility of either components or finished goods at any plant or distribution center that you may have. And you, regardless of whether you have 10 DCs or 100 DCs, and it doesn't really matter if they're all outsourced to different 3PLs. What the beautiful thing of this is you can integrate it so that you have visibility to all of those disparate data platforms without having to go through the noise or headache of depositing your data in a data lake, because of those pre-built connectors that Lachlan talked about when he was discussing IOM. And then you can see all the inventory available to you at a moment's notice. What we will usually do is layer on top of that what's called intelligent replenishment. So that would be your inbound inventory visibility coming into your DCs or plants. And then that would be layered on top of what we did on order orchestration. And then on top of that, we would have the upstream elements. So production insights, sensor data, inventory planning, vendor onboarding, risk management associated to those vendors. All those things would be layered into what we call the control tower. And then what we would do is we calibrate it for specific verticals. It gives you a faster ROI. We have collaboration across the partners and stakeholders. You can make decisions directly from the control tower, and you would have agents that augment those decision-making elements. Lachlan showed you the intelligent order management, which is an integral part of our control tower. And the one thing I want to focus on is inventory visibility, which I think is a beautiful component within the intelligent order management service, because it gives you the ability to reserve, allocate, order promise, and as I talked about earlier, the ability to have complete visibility into the entire portfolio. Imagine if you wanted to quarantine some product or you wanted to allocate some product for a VIP customer, you would have the ability to do that from a single location, again, across your entire platform. So that's pretty neat. One of the things that you were able to do as a result of leveraging something like the control tower is that you would have tremendous application to do dashboards and reports. So you can see what inventory is sitting at each facility, whether or not it's reserved, whether or not you have inbound inventory coming in, what are your sales against that inventory, what was reserved, what is on hand. All of this is available to you through a Power BI platform. And this is an example of different types of reports or metrics that might be available to you. So again, based on the persona, you would have the availability to see how you're doing against what you forecasted that you should do. This is another type of visibility or platform or dashboard that would be applicable, again, demonstrating for you revenue and how you're doing in terms of sales. And then what we do with customers is we usually will sit down with them and develop what's called a North Star. And in here, what we will do is say, what's your biggest pain point? And if the biggest pain point is I can never find my container when it's moving across the ocean, or I can't find, I'm trying to cross the border between Chile and Brazil, and my product is stuck because it's in the red lane. And what we would do is we would walk through with you the typical problems that you're having, and then how we would establish being able to do that in a particular time frame and with the product that we want to do. And then we would establish what we call your North Star. So there's some things that we think about in the future, right? So we're constantly evolving or incorporating latest intelligence into our product. And what we think about the things that many clients will be hit with in the next couple of years. And we're looking forward to understanding how we can help support them. So the first thing, as I mentioned, was sustainability. So we recently launched a Microsoft Cloud for Sustainability. It's pretty good and it's available for free trials. And if anybody's interested, I can post a link on this site after we're done. And what it does is allow you to understand where you are relative to your carbon emission footprint. And this is beautiful because it's not only useful for business decision-making purposes, but also for stakeholder or for shareholder extractions in case you need to report on that information for regulatory purposes. We believe that much more bot automation will be incorporated. And for instance, we now anticipate in our warehouses, cycle counting will be done via drones and AGVs rather than people. And that's something that we're anticipating so that we are developing the technology that can both input to and receive from these devices that will be leveraged more, especially since it will be harder to get real-time labor due to social distancing or just availability. One of the things that we're incorporating a lot is IoT data. So we're using that to help make our factories more efficient. We're using that to track real-time shipments as they're moving, either incoming, outgoing, or reverse. And then integrating all of that data to be able to have a trajectory of when that shipment will reach the customer and whether or not there's any risk associated with that shipment. AI will be a big component of any supply chain. We recently launched Supply Chain Insights. And Supply Chain Insights is interesting because it does an end-to-end risk assessment of your entire supply chain. As an example, if you have suppliers that are located in Monterey and your store is located in Guadalajara, what it will do is assess the risk of that supplier financially, quality output, their ability to be able to produce on time based on previous histories with you or with others, and whether or not they have the product committed to you that you need for your future production orders. That's pretty neat. That's for you as a customer to be able to have that information at your fingertips, helps resolve for you any headaches associated with any upstream disruptions. Like I said, that product was launched about 2 to 3 weeks ago, and it's already gaining fantastic interest in the capabilities that might be able to be developed with AI algorithms. Blockchain, we are dabbling with some pieces of blockchain in our supply chain. We're working with some customers such as FedEx to figure out what can be leveraged or utilized with a blockchain in the supply chain other than just financials. And we've been able to do that in our cloud supply chain. More to come on how that might be deployed through Dynamics in the next few months. I talked a little bit about the physical automations such as robotics, drones, AGVs, etc. That will definitely have a play, especially as we try to reduce both the human touch and as well as work concerns on carbon emissions, and being able to leverage a 24/7 type environment through automation rather than exorbiting that through people. Okay, and so I have like what I would call my final slide of the things that we've gone through with many customers on implementations or things that we think that people need to look out for. So number one, it's all about the data. The data is the key to doing any digital transformation, as well as understanding where exactly are you now and where will you be going forward. That data is really important because what's funny, I see sometimes customers will say, IT owns the data. No, business owns the data. And so you have to agree right up front who owns the data and what will be done to either curate it, normalize it, translate it, and how to be able to leverage and use that for decision-making purposes or for analytics. The other thing that we strongly advise from our clients is don't try to lift and shift from your current platform, otherwise known as rip or replace. It's important to better think about bolt-on solutions for needed aspects of your supply chain arena. And then once you're able to leverage and use that for both ROI as well as the correct business decision-making purposes, then you can start expanding to the left or right what you need to do. We have to understand what it means to plan for workforce role changes. With the activities shifting, especially in the reduction of manual operations, you want to work with your people to make sure that they understand their role and participation in that journey and how we can make sure that we can retrain the employees associated. And probably the other thing that we're working very hard on is to make this a no-code, low-code strategy, not needing engineers in order to be able to do decision-making aspects. As an example, Lachlan and I were talking to someone recently, and we were describing to them about fulfillment strategies such as, do we want to fill and kill from a DC? Do you want to do partial shipments? Do you want to always ship from the nearest DC to your customer? And it was interesting because when we were operating in an environment in SAP, that took us 6 months to not only get that agreed and documented amongst the business teams, but longer in order to be able to get it incorporated into an SAP environment. And those 6 months are very precious times, and you don't have the luxury of that kind of time in order to be able to implement something so that you can take advantage of something real time. So we're very cognizant that the tools and services that we make available to you, the customer, is something that can be done from a business perspective that will not take a long time to be implemented from an engineering environment. That's pretty much what I wanted to cover with you today. We can save the remaining time for any questions or comments.
Yep. There are some questions too. The first one is from Rusban. The question is, could we do customizations of the forms? I think he mentioned, or it's referring to Dynamics, the presentation at the beginning.
You mean Lachlan's presentation, right?
Sure, I can jump in on that. Yeah, all within our product portfolio family, all of our applications, you have the ability to customize the data model, customize the business logic, or customize the user interface in terms of the forms. So that's really part of our Dataverse Power Platform in our underlying platform technology that allows you to modify that. It could be as simple as just a view. You know, a user wants to create their own view as a personalization, or the system administrator can configure views and new forms that are tailored to the roles in the organization. Additionally, if you wanted to package up those changes, you can package up those changes. If you're a partner, for example, and wanted to work with a solution with multiple customers, for example. So definitely all of our solutions have the ability to customize the forms and user interface and integrate with different systems.
Okay, perfect. And Carol says, it is possible to mix Dynamics 365 with RPA tools like UiPath?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, essentially, our platform that Pat and I have mentioned through the presentations, that has a technology capability called Power Automate, and Power Automate has the integration. We essentially have our own RPA tools within that portfolio, which is our Power Platform. So you certainly have the ability to use those capabilities with our supply chain applications. That's essentially the technology we're leveraging in the orchestration process within our intelligent order management solution, and that can also be used with all of our apps, like our supply chain apps, our commerce apps, and sales apps, for example, if you want to use those tools to integrate with any platform.
Okay, I think that solves the questions. Rusman says thanks, and yeah, so if there is no other question, I want to say thanks so much for all the attendees in this presentation. Again, thanks so much, Lachlan, Pat, for being here, for being part of this great event. If you want to say anything else, so last words are yours.
No, I don't have anything additional to add, but yeah, I appreciate you listening today. Certainly feel free to go to our Dynamics websites to follow up, or certainly reach out through the conference team, and we can follow up with questions if there's further post the event.
Right, and as I suggested, if there's an interest in such things as supply chain insights, manufacturing cloud for sustainability, or for intelligent order management, control tower, etc., all you need to do is contact the administrator for this forum, and we can send out the links appropriately. Thanks very much for attending and listening, and hopefully you have a successful day.
Perfect. Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you.